Diversity and representation matters so much that we killed the biggest representative of that for black men in the MCU.
Yeah. This is a very.
It's what are you thinking? You know what? I'm not going to kill the lead. I could have. Certainly, they had to have someone who thought of this. David, obviously, the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems, I should say, not the biggest, but one of the biggest problems I have. Maybe it is the biggest. We'll find out that I had with this movie is that, and I don't know if you want to get into what we liked about it because it's a few things for me specifically.
We can talk about them as we get to them.
Okay, is that they didn't recast T'Challa, right? Black Panther, and I know in a sense, as far as with a black male, but they did with Shuri, and. So
wait, sorry, what are you saying?
Them not recasting Black Panther. They should have just recast Black Panther.
They went with Shuri instead of recasting.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Okay,
they went with Shuri instead of actually recasting him. Yeah. And she's supposed to be the new Black Panther, right? But they could have easily have done some kind of explanation of using the multiverse to bring back Michael B. Jordan, but he's a good version of the Black Panther.
Yeah. Was that kind of what you were thinking?
That's what I was thinking.
So,
I
guess we
I thought that would have been you already set up, like it's almost a connecting thread at least to the first movie.
Yeah. So,
and at least you can use the excuse of the stupid multiverse. I hate the whole multiverse thing.
I got a better one for you.
Okay.
It's a bit of, listen, they are not against like rewrites or just changing certain things.
Okay.
And you could have easily like this is it works well enough within what happens between the original Black Panther and Wakanda Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther could have just put Killmonger in one of those special magic chambers that they have and kept him alive. Just because he was like, no, let me die or whatever. And it's easy enough for them to just have this reveal at some point early on in Wakanda Forever where it's like, oh, he's actually alive. He's been in this chamber the entire time. We're gonna like basically heal him, wake him. We healed him. We're gonna wake him up. And listen, Wakanda is not. And we're gonna get into it because it's a massive criticism for this movie. They have just immunity, like political immunity, all around the world. So they're not. It's not out of the ordinary for the way that they're contextualizing these movies for them to do kind of terrible or ethically questionable things. So it would have.
I guess we should say before we continue that this is going to be a spoiler. Sure. Our audience should know by now. If you're new, this is going to be a spoiler review. So you've been warned. If you want to go see it for some reason, then end it now. But continue.
Where was I with that? Oh, okay. So yeah, it would have been totally possible. And yes, they could have done the like multiverse timey-wimey thing and like brought in a version of Michael B. Jordan's character that like wasn't Killmonger or they could have done that. There's plenty of stuff that they could have done, and it could have
keeps that strong. Black male lead in a film because
I guess, but just I
coming from that standpoint,
I wouldn't even go that far. I would just tell you that having someone with name recognition in your movie that can be a lead is even more important because
he's the most popular character. He's one of the most popular characters, and now you just killed him for as much as I like Letitia Wright. She can't carry it.
Yeah, she's not she's not
Ironheart
the selling point.
Can't carry it. I'm sorry. Miss America can't carry it.
Who?
Miss America. I was just because of Captain America.
Oh. Yeah, there's
Come on, David. You got to stay with me.
I can't sometimes.
Spider-Woman can't carry it. They're trying to, force all these female leads now. And generally speaking, I know there's still male leads in there. But it seems like a bad idea just from a business standpoint, like you're saying, to take one of your most popular characters and then replace them with someone who just doesn't have any name recognition. And it's not even it's not even just the name recognition in that sense. It's Black Panther is a male role, and to my understanding, they've been telling us for years how much diversity and representation matters. And it's like, you take, to put in perspective, if you kill off Batman, I ain't watching Batgirl or Nightwing or anything like that. Like, I'm there for Batman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It's like,
so,
you
yeah.
can't kill off the character just because the actor that played them died. People get recast all the time. They're doing it with Harrison Ford. He's recasting old General from Hulk. What's his name? Hurt or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I think there's even more reason to recast Black Panther than anything. And plus, Chadwick Boseman himself and his brother had stated that he wanted the role recast, that he thought that the character was too important for them not to recast it, that he didn't want the role to die with him.
Yeah,
so,
Chadwick Boseman, as far as I'm concerned, was like a real actor. Like, he understood the concept of like, the show must go on.
Like, listen, here's the thing. Heath Ledger defined the role of the Joker, right? I understand Joaquin Phoenix was good. Jack Nicholson was good. Jack Nicholson was there. But and Chadwick Boseman defines the role of the Black Panther, right? He portrayed it well. He did a fantastic job. It's one of the things I most enjoy about the Black Panther movie, about Civil War. I thought he was better in Civil War than better utilized, I should say, in Civil War than how he was utilized in the Black Panther movie.
Yeah.
And so, but it's still, you still recast those roles, right? Just like with Kevin Conroy, R.I.P. as well.
Yeah.
Dying.
We can talk about that.
Last week. He was the voice of the Batman animated series and animated movies. But yet you're still going to recast, the voice for the Batman, because you got to, because it's about the character, and you have all these actors who have their own part iteration in there that fans respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just don't like the idea of not recasting him. I think it's a bad business decision and a bad decision for the movie too.
They're not one for one. I mean, there's a difference between someone being a voice actor or somebody being the villain in a movie, and then they're gone, and then you recast them for like, there are differences, and the only reason I say that is because Black Panther is the lead, and he's not in the movie.
Yeah,
the suit, dude. The suit itself is in 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
No one's wearing the thing until in a 2-hour and 41-minute movie. And it just...
No one wears it except for 15 minutes. And you would think, that's, again, you can still, if you do the multiverse thing, or what you just mentioned, which was that, Chadwick ended up putting him in a pod somewhere, right? That saved him. Yeah. And that just kept him under sedation or whatnot.
Right.
While they did whatever to him. Then at least you still have the ability to dedicate the beginning and the end to Chadwick like they did.
Yeah.
But you still have the Black Panther. You know what I mean? You can kill two birds with one stone. You know what I mean?
There's a lot, and I kept thinking about this watching the entire movie. There's a lot of really interesting, like thematic stuff and character development and stakes with characters, that having essentially Killmonger come back and to kind of be the hero, that would have worked really well, because there's stuff in the movie where they talk about him, and they talk about how certain people decided to side with him over T'Challa, and there's all this stuff in there, and it felt so empty to me because neither of those characters are in the movie, and so they're just it's very weird. I can't get past what feels a little bit dirty on Disney's part, using Chadwick Boseman's death as like a selling point for this movie. Does that make, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind it. Here's my problem though, that kind of like in the same vein of what you're saying.
On. You don't. Okay. Yeah, be clear, because what you're saying is that you didn't mind that Disney used his death in order to essentially sell tickets to this movie.
Yeah. No, I don't mind them. I don't know if that's necessarily was Ryan Coogler's intention. Let's say that. So I don't mind Ryan Coogler, addressing Chadwick's death.
No, not not at all.
In the movie, right? And everything. I think I don't necessarily, even though I do have a critique of the beginning part, I don't necessarily. I like the beginning. I like the end. I think all that's great. I completely understand.
Yeah.
You have your lead character, the lead actor that died, and you could tell with the performances of the other actors kind of mourning his death that it wasn't just a co-star. It came across like a friend. And so I think that's good. I think how they honor Chadwick Boseman is in a sense good. The problem where it becomes heavy-handed and over the top is the in-between of them doing that, and that's where it feels like very exploitative. You know what I mean? You take that in-between stuff out, and dial it down some, and again, you recast Black Panther, and it seems less exploitative. Now it does.
But why is the middle more? But why is the middle more exploitative than? Because like I'm not even. It's not really even about the beginning or the end. It's the way that this was kind of sold is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, to your point, is that this seems more like a movie about Chadwick's death than it does about Black Panther.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well,
you know
some of it. I mean,
but I say the reason why I give them a little bit of leeway there is because when your lead actor of one of the most popular franchises you produced dies, it makes sense that you have these scenes in there and you promote that in your marketing, right? It seems like a good connective tissue. I think the problem though is that it's been a couple of years. I don't think it should be the only thing. I don't like the way they did it. Mystery virus was it? Of unknown
here's the thing.
Origin, was that what it was?
That was bad. What I'm talking about with like the first trailer was all about that. Like because you got to remember, trailers are selling points for movies.
Yep, and they're very particular in doing it.
Yeah, and so it's like it just cuts me the wrong way, especially because it's Disney and it's not. This thing you got to remember about Disney, it's like Disney doesn't do things out of like
altruism.
Yes. It's
they were doing it for
it's
money.
The bottom dollar there, and that's the thing is
the
that the movie really, like you were saying, it not all the time, because the middle of the movie is spinning its. I got plenty of criticisms for the actual plot itself, which really even the stuff that surrounds T'Challa's death, it's so weak. The motivation, like Shuri's motivation in this movie being her brother's death because he died of a random virus that somehow Wakanda couldn't cure. Dude, I don't know if you remember, they cure a bullet wound to a man's spine in the first Black Panther movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Not only that, and let's get into the story a little bit.
Okay.
So it opens with Shuri trying to save T'Challa. He has some mysterious illness, right? And so she's trying to make a synthetic version of the flower that Killmonger destroyed in the first movie. He burns their little temple and where all of the flowers happen to be, right? And so she's trying to make the synthetic version to save her brother. The problem is T'Challa already had the herb inside of him. Yep. So why would ingesting...
Why was she... Maybe more of it?
Why would that do anything? This movie, dude,
NyQuil,
so often,
Wakanda edition.
So often this movie ignores its own technology for the sake of certain things being able to happen.
We should do a Photoshop of a NyQuil bottle with Wakanda, and it's just the herb in it.
I want to see if I can show everybody this. There's a shot, and it's a smaller.
I think you're right though.
It's a smaller criticism. So they're all at his funeral, right? He dies, right? They don't save him, and they're all at his funeral. And there's this shot of the Dora Milaje, which I'll probably, forgive me for mispronouncing their name. I'm just not always great at that. They're picking up this coffin, and I'm sure you saw this. And it's like, it looks like it weighs about 5 pounds. It's very obvious.
You saw it. Yeah, it was very obvious. There's nothing in it.
I'm having a hard time grabbing it, but there's the coffin. And it was just like, it was so obvious that, and it was weird because it's like there's supposed to be a grown man in that, and I could go into detail about why certain things in this don't work based on the previous movie, but we would be here forever.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people have to remember is that the Wakandans are not superhuman.
Yep.
They don't have the flower in them. That is reserved specifically for the Black Panther.
And you have these scrawny looking women.
I mean, they're in shape.
You know, like they're in shape.
They're in
but,
shape,
you
but
know, I say scrawny in the sense of
there's not
muscular, and it's like
just give me some heft to what they're doing. That's
yeah,
all
like
I'm asking for.
double hand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like coffins should be. They're generally heavy, and even if you were to tell me it's vibranium, it's like there's still a whole man inside the coffin. Like you gotta
minor
give
critique,
some
but I did notice it because it looked.
It just and then like what did they do with this coffin? Like it beams up into a ship, and it's like, all right, like why?
Yeah, they should have had the ship beam down the coffin.
It's just odd. Like the whole scene was kind of odd. I mean, like I don't mind the costuming and some of the framing is decent.
So here's the thing for me with that opening scene. And make sure, where's it at here? And maybe this is just because of, from my perspective, not knowing the culture, right? Keep that in mind. Don't lose your mind, people. It seemed odd with everyone celebrating the death of their king, again, who is one of your best and most popular characters, and then it cuts to the Marvel logo, and it's dead silent. So we go from death, celebration, silence, right? And so it's kind of, for me, emotionally, it's like, well, how am I supposed to receive this? I get what they're trying to do, but and I understand, hey, you know, there are cultures where they celebrate the death, right? And even in our own culture with certain memorials, people will try and have more of an uplifting tone to it, right?
Yeah,
I get that. I'm just saying it seemed just a bit odd to me. As far as reconciling the scenes and stuff. Not that I didn't like them in the design and the celebration and stuff like that, aesthetically and cool and everything. Well, but then the other thing I thought was weird was that not one Avenger showed up.
Yeah. So just on the point of the way that they kind of handle that, it seems like this seems like the people that were closest to him are the ones that are mourning the most. It makes sense that there's a part of their culture that's celebrating because they're celebrating the life of their leader, someone that they respect, right? The silent stuff, I don't even know what to. I don't know what to really say about the whole silent thing. That's clearly like just something they were doing is like, oh, let's have a moment of silence for Chadwick Boseman. Like it's not even really, and it's happening during the logo thing, so I it's kind of whatever. It's odd though in this like this superhero movie where they're like, I guess trying to amp you up for this action adventure type deal, that it's like it's very somber at the beginning. And the thing that was so interesting to me was that there were a lot of kids in my theater. I mean, like kids, like maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. Not only is this movie almost 3 hours long, you open it with this like death scene of Black Panther.
Yep.
It some of it just.
Well, I think
it's very odd.
I like
the way that it's, you know,
of how they handle that better than I like the beginning. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, as far as like if I had to choose between the beginning or the end part of it, that's what I mean. I like both of them, but I like the end better, and I think it's because, but I don't know. I think it's the problem. One of the problems this theme had, this movie had, and I didn't expect them to stick to it because it's Marvel. They have to do their slapstick comedy, right? But I'm like, oh well, maybe they'll take a more serious direction with this movie, right? And everything, just because of, you know, Chadwick's death, and they want to honor him and stuff. And man, they like just slapstick humor after slapstick humor. It's like, can we just please have a mature?
Okay, I guess you're right. I just
Marvel movie.
So much of it doesn't even faze me anymore. Where it's like there's stuff there, but it's not. It's almost like I'm numb to the way that they do comedy in this. The only time I laughed is when Oh shoot, hang on. There's a lot of characters in this. Oh my gosh, his name's slipping my mind now.
M'Baku?
M'Baku. He goes into the council room like pretty early on after this, and he calls what's her face a bald-headed demon.
Yeah, that was funny. That was the best line in the film.
So he's really the only thing I liked about this movie, and he's only in it for 10 minutes.
Well, we'll get there. Before, do you mind?
I guess.
Putting a bookmark
like,
there?
Okay.
Well, I want to do that because I know we need to get through the first part. I wanted to say that I didn't, in the opening scene before it cuts to the Marvel logo, I did not like the, where is it at? I just had it. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I don't like that they killed Chadwick Boseman off screen. I get the understanding that, Shuri's trying to work to, save his life, but I just think it would have been more effective to have someone else in the Black Panther costume and then have him, give the audience one last moment with him and you get to see it. You know what I mean?
I guess the biggest problem with that is, and I know it's like, again, Disney, it's not like they're against exploiting people. They did that with freaking Stan Lee to sell cryptocurrency. It would be a little weird to have like a digital, like if they were just to have him in the mask and that's
what I mean.
Yeah. So
just in the mask.
And not only would that have been better for what they gave us, and this idea of like Shuri being the main character in this, which they hid in the marketing for the whole time, by the way. No, it's because this movie wasn't about them trying to sell you on like an interesting story. It was all surrounded about the death of one of their actors, which is why I said this. The entire thing feels a little dirty to me. But Shuri in particular, right? If we're going from this idea of the death of her brother, and that's it's supposed to be, and they talk about it in the movie, it's supposed to be the centerpiece.
Right.
But why is she so angry at everyone else for something that was a random tragedy? He contracts an illness somehow, by the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense that that's the direction that they went in. And they don't really, they're just the writing is lazy in that respect because they can't even do the dignity of coming up with something that makes sense canonically. That could have actually taken him out. Now, what could have is him being killed by someone that he's fighting. Could have worked.
Yeah.
Not only would that have worked, but it would have given Shuri motivation, especially if they're going to go the Namor route.
It has some good character motivation.
Yeah, it's good character motivation because the whole time through the movie, she's so angry.
You could have someone else in the suit and then have Namor kill
T'Challa, essentially. Yeah,
T'Challa,
I mean, if we're going with what they decided to give us, and we're trying to essentially fix that,
there are mistakes.
It would have made more sense because otherwise, it's like, well, what? Wait, why do you? There's that line when she's with the Queen, where she's like, I want to like. When I think about him, it makes me want to burn the world. It's like, why? Like, I get that you're upset about your brother's death, but her motivations throughout the movie just don't work for me because there's nothing driving her forward, really. They're trying to convince us that this is the reasoning, and I'm like, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it?
Okay, so then they go to this council meeting. It's like a UN. And that's I was when I was writing my notes down, I was like, I don't even know what to call this. I was like, random council meeting? Like, is this the UN?
It's at the UN.
So what's weird, you remember, I don't remember if you can recall, but the place that they were at in Civil War looked much more kind of like futuristic and like a place that a group politicians would have met. It's this big, like, open semicircle deal, and someone's at the front and they're making like speeches. And this is like they're in this little boardroom. Not only that, it's very odd, and I have to reference the first movie a lot in this because they just forget practically everything about that movie. One of the biggest driving points of that movie is that by the time it's over, T'Challa is willing to share their technology with everyone.
Yep.
And this movie roughly takes place like 6 years afterwards. Like we get a couple different references to time periods. It's actually a little longer than that because I think that T'Challa's girlfriend, whose name I don't even remember, she mentions how like she leaves, I think right after the snap.
Yeah.
And then of course Wakanda just decides to go back to being an isolationist culture.
Just randomly.
Yeah, like just it's like everything that happened, it's like none of it mattered, right? And
right. Well, I think that's the problem with this film is that the stakes don't matter in it. You know what I mean? There's hardly any.
No, it's all contrived for the most part.
It seems like a very corporatized movie. That corporate got their hands on this, and even this opening scene where you get the Wakandans defeat the Navy SEALs or whoever they're supposed to be.
Yeah, with their knives, dude. Apparently, those magic spears that they have can deflect bullets.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh boy.
That didn't really bother me.
Bro, what?
Because it's supposed to be vibranium, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a spear. It is a metal.
Oh yeah, and
it is a metal pole.
They're not superhuman.
They're not superhuman, and she spins that thing around as fast as a machine gun.
So, but yeah. That's all about her ability. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
It doesn't matter that it's vibranium. Right? A shield makes sense. A vibranium shield, it's protecting you. A thin spear
that you have to use yourself.
That you have to spin at superhuman rates. It's like guns are just not
in
effective.
Order to do that. Yeah, they don't matter. Yeah. Well, hey, we have the actual queen. We have the all-female guard, right? We have Shuri as the Black Panther. We have villain lady, right? Second in command or whoever. Who else do we have in here?
Villain lady?
Yeah, the Namor's side piece. What's her name?
I guess she's in the movie for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You got his like commander. Like that guy was, the big the big buff dude.
Yep. But the opening scene to when they bring the Navy SEALs and have them kneel.
Oh yeah.
I was like, come on.
Yes.
Yeah, just very heavy-handed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It's but.
Then we get our first almost pitch black scene in the movie, and this is something we had talked about before it came out with some of the clips that they had released. We can talk about that one with where Namor shows up in Wakanda in a minute, but one of the things
the first act I did not like because of the color grading on it.
So much of this movie,
so
much of this movie is dark.
Like, man, I was like, y'all need to get
not
Miguel.
In a racial sense. It's just the actual lighting in the movie is like.
They need to get Sposhnik on this so he could lighten it up.
Yeah.
Oh man, that first act was dark, bro.
And they
it was so bad. Couldn't hardly see anything. Now I do like the scene of the shipping container and the Atlanteans. I'm just going to call them that because I'm not going to try and pronounce
Kukulkans.
The Kukulkans, yeah.
The Kukulkans, Kolakans, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
they're Atlanteans. That's basically what they are.
Them, wiping everyone out. I like the aspect of using a siren's call to lure everyone out to jump to their death.
But it's like
that was interesting, and I think there's a lot of interesting aspects of this film. But just narrative wise and plot wise, it just falls short. Even Namor, I like the idea of Namor being in this, but even his reason for it kind of goes back to the Eternals too. His specific reason for not interfering when Thanos was going on, before the snap, you would think, well, hey, this is, this out of this world threat to, because his main motivation is protecting his people, right?
Right. Well, they don't care. None of the writers care about the snap
way
anymore.
To protect. I know it's a plot. It's a plot hole. You know what I mean? I think that's why you and I said they probably should just ended it with Phase 3 rather than continuing it, unless you had better writers at hand, which they don't. But
they didn't. The snap in general ultimately, like, they didn't cover their bases enough with that. Moving forward.
Yeah.
Because they're introducing so many. I mean, they have introduced so many new characters in Phase 4, significantly more than they probably did in Phase 1 and 2. And at this point, and I think some of the Marvel writers are on record saying that they just don't care. They're moving on from the snap. They're pretty much pretending that the snap didn't happen at this point. And they reference it occasionally if it makes sense for what they're talking about. But they don't. Are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm listening to you. My wife was just texting me. Sorry.
Okay. They don't. They don't care about it anymore. So as much as it's a plot hole in every movie moving forward, it's just one of those things that it's like they don't care. And man, this opening scene, it's in concept, it's fine, but then it's like they have this group of underwater isolationists, right? How did they figure out that siren song? Like, why does that work for them? Like, how did they come to this understanding that if they all get together...
Vibranium told them, David.
Oh, right. There's one of the weird things about the scene, right? And maybe I missed something, because there are definitely a couple moments in this nearly 3-hour-long movie where I zoned out for a minute. Bullets killed some of them.
And then they came back to life.
Okay. But then why later on do other forms of death not bring them back?
Back to life, yep.
Is that explained at all?
Dude, I missed it, if so, because I'm right there with you. I was doing a bit of this in the film, and then I'd be like, okay, I need to make sure I'm paying attention. I didn't actually doze off. I just got tired because it's boring.
It is
and
such
it's a slog to get through. And maybe that's because the movie kept telling us we're colonizers,
Whatever. So cringe, dude. I know people have gotten upset about that, and I'm like, all right, I get it. I understand why you're upset. It's but it's so cringe.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's
Wakanda, a isolationist group, right? A civilization that is isolationist, who didn't want to be bothered by the outside world, who feel so much superiority to everyone else around them. But it's like, where were you when all of this colonizing was happening, Wakanda?
Yep.
It's like this civilization that is so far advanced that the way that they decide who their next ruler is with trial by combat. And not only did that screw them up, because Killmonger, they literally let a guy, right? So this is the thing about Killmonger, and people tend to forget this. Killmonger literally talked about how he wanted to kill everyone, including children. He very specifically states that in the first Black Panther movie. So it's a situation where there's this higher, holier than thou mentality that the Wakandas have. But and we'll get to it in the big action scene that takes place in Boston, but it's they're just doing whatever they want, probably killing lots of innocent people, and there's no backlash on a government level. One of the biggest problems with this movie is that on an international level, within this world, Wakanda just gets away with whatever they want, and there's no repercussions for it.
Bro, it's because you can't find their society, and they have vibranium.
But they know where it is now. They definitely
the Avengers aren't getting involved, dude.
Yeah, it's so oh, by the way, it's the Sokovia Accords. I don't remember if you remember all that. That got completely retconned out of existence in a random line in She-Hulk.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, they're just
Oh,
like,
of
no,
course it
they're
did.
like, no, the Sokovia Accords don't matter anymore.
Yeah,
It's not a thing. It's nuts, dude.
that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I get what they were going for with this, but again, and the other thing about this scene, right, where the CIA and I guess some other government organizations, it's never 100% clear who's fully involved in what government organizations it is. They get attacked by Namor's people on this boat with a and this is a big plot point, a vibranium detector, right?
Right.
There's a lot of technology on this boat. And yet, and I thought this was going to come up later, I was like, all right, this is a weird thing that they seem to be missing, because they're blaming the Wakandans for this attack, and they kill all the CIA agents on board. Are there not cameras on this boat?
You would think there would be, right?
Is there not some sort of technology that lets them? We're talking about a species of people who live underwater. Like I don't even know if they would necessarily have the concept of the kind of technology that's on the surface, like cameras, things like that. Like it's never fully developed. It's like the same sort of weird stuff that you get with Wakanda, where it's like, oh, we're this super advanced technology, but it seems like they still have slums. It's like there's still people living in poverty in Wakanda, and it's like, but you have this infinite supply of a material that essentially enriches your entire nation. Like you guys should all be living relatively wealthy lives. It's odd.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's no cameras on the ship, so everyone just assumes the Wakandans killed all of these CIA agents.
Yeah. Rather than you would think on this ship, that CIA and Navy SEALs, I think too, specifically, or whatever special forces, that they have all this technology. But wait a second. No, well, I think to their credit, the scene before that when they're digging for vibranium.
Yeah.
Or when the divers get to the vibranium detector, the Atlanteans are able to turn off their power. You remember that? So I would have to go back, but does that happen on the ship to where their power's turned off somehow?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure because when they're underwater, okay.
Oh, they cut the
guy.
cord.
Yeah. So listen,
that's right.
Even if, and this is the problem with the logic, right? Even if you could say, well, they cut the power to the ship, which I don't think happens.
Right.
I don't think that's the case.
I think you're right.
Your argument in the case of the world would be, how did the Wakandan get to the bottom of the ocean to cause this problem? Because like you would have had records and recordings of what was going on down there. So it's like you have to explain to me how a Wakandan on the bottom of the ocean, like the bottom of the ocean, happened to cause these problems.
Right.
And then not only that, but it's like there's this thing called innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Like you can't just blame a nation for something. You know what I mean? Like, hey, when we get to the Boston scene, all the stuff that's there probably should have caused an international incident.
Uproar. Yeah.
But none of that really matters anymore. Because everybody forgets everything from movie to movie at this point.
Yeah.
Let's jump through this a little bit. I don't want to spend like way too much time.
Yeah, I don't want to either.
Notes. I'm gonna look at what I got after the whole government vibranium detector nonsense.
Yeah, I put. Well, I guess we haven't gotten there yet, so never mind. I'm skipping a little bit.
In all of my notes, I wrote down Namor as Namor. I just put like a whole bunch of R's after his name.
Flashback was cringe. Like, oh my god.
So let's get to his introduction with Shuri and the Queen.
The Queen,
whose name I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I don't remember either. I'll look it up.
Listen, I know. So
I'll consult the Book of Truth.
Yeah, if you're actually watching this, this is not a great copy of this that I totally obtained legally. This is how dark it is.
Yep.
These scenes are this dark, and a lot of you have seen the clips that they released of that scene with Namor. It's unbelievably dark. In fact, let's see, while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up the YouTube clip of Namor talking to them. Let's see.
Angela Bassett is the actress that plays Ramonda.
And I didn't think, honestly, it's not like
I enjoyed her character.
Yeah, some of the acting is fine. I don't think I don't think Namor's acting is very good.
I agree with you there. It's decent.
Here's a shot of Namor in the movie. Like, all of the movie is this dark.
Yep. And I just don't understand why. Like, have you people not heard of lighting, proper lighting? Do not follow Sputnik.
There's a fire going on over here.
Did you get the Little Mermaid trailer in yours?
What? No.
The Little Mermaid, that live action we did, and that thing's the same thing, dude. It's I don't get this idea of, well, we want it to be realistic and properly show how dark it is under the sea or how dark it is at night. It's like, guys, you're telling a superhero story. It doesn't need to be that realistic.
Listen, suspension of disbelief can go to lighting. Like, if you want to do proper lighting, you can make a fireplace be there, and the fireplace happens to be brighter than it probably is in real life.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that. Now, this is what I'll tell you. The reason that they did a lot of this with the lighting was not because they don't know how to properly light scenes. It's because they had to hide all of the horrendous CG in this. Yeah. And I put this in my notes.
Oh, yep.
I put this in my notes.
I forgot about that. Good point. I'm glad you brought it up.
It is not the fault of the CG artists that it is this bad, because there's been plenty of articles that have come out recently that they are on the most insane deadlines to get all of this CGI work done for Disney, for HBO, for all of these different shows. It's a cutthroat industry as it is. There's plenty of like documentaries and articles that you can read up on why that is the case, and that these companies go out of business because it's always about getting to the cheapest price possible, because people want the work, but then they can't keep studios open because of how cheap they're doing this for. And so there's this like exploitive nature that goes on in Hollywood, despite no one wanting to believe this about Hollywood. Like, we have problems with that all the time talking to people.
Are you trying to tell me that Hollywood is not the center for altruism, David?
No, not at all. And so it's a situation where yes, the CGI should be criticized, but there should be a little bit of context given to it that they're under these insane deadlines to get this done, because they're churning out all of this content. And dude, the CG in this does not look good.
It doesn't.
It doesn't look good. There's some decent cinematography in this. It's rare, and it's few and far and in between, and it lets you know like the difference of when they kind of gave Ryan Coogler permission to actually direct the movie and gave the cinematographer enough leeway to be able to do certain things, but it's not that often. And a lot of the time there's like flat shots. Stuff looks like almost like television, and it's weird. And I won't even get into too much of the editing, but a lot of the editing in this, and the like weird cutoffs for scenes with I want to call her Elaine, because I have no idea what her actual name is in the movie. She just played Elaine on Seinfeld.
The
Veep lady.
Yep.
She all of that is useless. Like, we don't even I mean, to a degree, we don't even have to get into all of that, even though there's plenty of weird plot problems with it. But yeah, all of this stuff with Namor in here where they like meet him. Dude, how did he get into Wakanda?
Yeah, right? I guess because he's able to get under with the water somehow.
So he swam through the canals, and their force fields don't go into the water too?
Did they properly explain that?
Nope.
At all?
No, he just shows up, and he's like, "Oh, wow." That's literally like this whole scene where he's like, "Wow, this is Wakanda."
Yeah.
And Angela Bassett's character's like, "What are you doing here? Who are you? Like, who are you?" And he's like, he just keeps talking, and like they're talking through each other. It's such a weird introduction. And not only that, and again, going from just the way that some of this should have been set up in the introduction of Namor, wouldn't it have been better if Namor, revealed himself to the Wakandans, and they had like a meeting in the chamber, and he gives his plight to them about like, hey, I want you to join forces with us, and whatever. And like they say no, and you have a building conflict, instead of him immediately being like, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to murder all of you. Like, that's essentially what he does. I don't know, because I think they're trying to set him up to be like this sympathetic character, but he's a murderer. Like this is like the problem with so many. Like they did this with Killmonger, and they're to a different degree they're doing it with Namor, where it's like, I guess by the end of the movie you're supposed to get this idea that Namor's not as bad anymore
as he actually is.
But I'm supposed to forget that he like murdered tons
the
of
queen
people
and other people too.
Yeah. Oh, dude, there's
their logic, right?
There's so
many
much
plot
in
holes
this.
in this.
So
and we don't have to spend forever going over the multiple plot holes. I think that you could also take out Ironheart because she wasn't useless. This is a problem. A lot of the characters are just replicas of other characters in the movie. Shuri, Ironheart. You have the two, the general female guard, and then the other female guard that she's with, and
Michonne from The Walking Dead. Is So I guess if you want to move ahead to the Ironheart stuff,
we can move ahead there. That's fine. Because it's just really useless. You take that out, and now you can focus on M'Baku, was strong in the movie, eyes underused, and I don't. So that's what I'll say about that.
They go to Boston to find Riri Williams, who is characterized literally as just being the best. She's just this natural genius, who somehow figured out how to do all of this stuff with essentially Iron Man. Like she's basically just new Iron Man. But there's way less motivation for anything she's doing other than you get this one moment where she was motivated. By the way, she's the one that built the vibranium detector, and they're like, it's so weird the way they do it, and I can't figure out if it was supposed to be comedy that they were going for, where it's like, oh yeah, I built it for class because my teacher said I couldn't do it. And you're like, why?
What?
Because I was trying to figure out, because I realized at some point, just based off what they were talking about, that she built, that the CIA or whoever tapped Riri to build this. But then they make it sound like that wasn't the case. She built this for a class project of her own volition, and then the CIA stole it? I don't 100% know what the actual answer to that was.
I guess something happened.
Also, why would the CIA, because she talks about how she basically got a lot of the parts from random machinery, and of course somehow this girl knows, and we're not given any explanation for this, somehow she knows just how to build a machine that detects vibranium.
Yeah.
How did you get the vibranium in order to figure this out? It seems like in order to test it to make sure it works, you'd have to have a source of vibranium. So where did she get that? What's the motivate? This is the thing, is that her motivations don't, I think you would mention this, her motivations don't matter in this movie. There's nothing really strong enough that I thought gave her any reason to do this.
I think it's her dad dying, but I don't think it was under.
She was already tinkering and stuff, because they talk about that. She was tinkering when she was 3 years old.
It seemed very forced and just unnecessary.
So not only that, but they go and essentially kidnap an American citizen, and threaten her. The Dora Milaje, I think it's Michonne, the woman that plays Michonne.
Yep.
She basically says, "You can come with us, conscious or unconscious." Yeah. And you're like, oh my! And it gets worse. This is the thing.
But somehow it's the America that's the bad guy in this certain part. I did enjoy the theme earlier of the Queen and the Council at the beginning of the movie, telling them, we know what y'all do, talking about talking to France, whoever the other country was, and then the same thing with the Americans. We know what y'all want to use vibranium for. But
it's very realistic for a world superpower to look at other people with a sense of morality, despite all of the awful things that they do, and say, we're better than you, and doesn't matter if we do the exact same stuff, you can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even though T'Challa promised to, and this is the thing, man, you could contextualize it like this. They have the kind of technology, right, that can cure paralysis, that can they have all of this technology that can give people working limbs again. They can like heal people, like, you know, they have their
because the whole White Wolf, what's his name?
Exactly.
Buddy Bowie, what's his name?
Bucky,
that's it.
So they have all of that. They're the magic balls.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, the balls that they possess can like resuscitate people. They that's one of the they use that to like heal.
It's not only the balls they possess that can resuscitate people.
Well, oh my.
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. It's getting late.
They
I take that one back.
All of this stuff that they refuse to give people on like a medical level. And it's like you don't even have to share. And I guess they're you know, they're worried about like redesigns. But this is the thing, is like all of the stuff that goes on with governments in this, it's so surface level that they never even get into that.
Yeah.
But there's never an appeal in these meetings for one of these governments to be like, you have the ability to heal people from paralysis, and you will not share that technology with the world. That's a pretty strong argument, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
But it doesn't matter.
But so we get that scene with them going to the bridge, right? Where, because they, you know, they escape and they hold no regard for life, and they do a bunch of destruction. And then after that,
oh, dude, they blow up. Riri Williams blows up a drone, and the drone falls to Earth. So we can listen. There's so much about her like flying into the atmosphere that high, and like she hits this drone, and it blows up in the middle of a bridge in Boston. And I'm pretty sure it takes out some of the people that are chasing them. Like the actual like government is after them for whatever the reason, and like because they try to contextualize it as if I think you had said this, like the government's bad in this. Dude, we're 46 minutes into this movie. 46 minutes.
I know, dude. I checked and I was just like, come on.
They so Riri potentially kills a lot of people in this, and not just her, the Dora Milaje as well, because she pushes that spear at one point through the back of the car and hits like the cop, and the cop car goes like tumbling. So even if that guy's not dead, she just injured like a Boston police officer in a country that she does not live in, doing something illegal. Like it's just forget like the morality of what the movie is trying to tell you. It's like, this is insane. This entire sequence of them doing this would have caused an international conflict.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. If it showed up on the news and they were like an opposing country, like a world power, came into Boston, caused all this damage, potentially killed police officers. Crazy. People would have lost their minds. They would have been calling for war with Wakanda over something like this. It's nuts, dude. You know, and they could have easily been like, oh yeah, and they stole an American citizen, this poor girl in college.
Doesn't look great.
It's I just, this entire scene, it's all I could think about. I was like, this is an international incident at this point. But you know what? Doesn't even matter.
Nope.
No one cares. They just do it and we move on. It's like,
because of reasons.
They're like, don't think about it. We're just moving on to the next part of the movie. Now, the middle of this,
Act 2,
sure, which is like very long and very slow and very full of exposition.
Do we have to talk about it just because?
So we've got all this.
I mean, Martin Freeman's just in it just to, you know.
It's like, hey, remember this character?
Yeah, and like do these tasks to move along the plot.
This movie has at least 3, if not more, characters that are just setups for what's coming down the line.
Yep.
So Martin Freeman, his ex-wife Elaine, I know that's not her real name, I'm just calling her that, or Veep if you would prefer Veep, and you could argue Namor. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm forgetting. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to spin off like a Dora Milaje series from this too.
Oh, don't give them that idea, David. Come on now.
No, they've probably already thought about it. So that, you know, their whole thing is going on. There's this like, and this is the thing that bugged me, and I think we passed it already, but I do want to talk about this. M'Baku seems to be the only sane character in this movie. He's the only one who is giving what seems to be rational advice. Now, I'm sure there's an argument for why that may not be the case, but he comes into the throne room early on, right? He makes fun of Michonne's character, which I had talked about, and then he chastises the elders for siding with Killmonger. Says, why should we listen to any of you after what you did, allowing Killmonger to take over? And I was like, whoa, there's actually a moment of someone being like, how stupid are y'all for allowing this to be the case?
Yeah.
And I'm saying this for a reason. What I thought this movie might be a continuation of theme-wise, which it's not, because you can argue there's themes in this that are like relevant and that you might be able to grab onto. I don't really think there are. It's like, half-baked attempts at it. Because I thought what was going to happen, especially the way they were talking about Shiri and the way that M'Baku talks about certain situations in the movie, was that it was going to be sort of like a passing on from some of their old traditions into becoming better people. Because people forget the Wakandans slaughter each other at the end of the first movie. They have a civil war within Wakanda at the end of that over like who should be the ruler.
Yep.
And so I thought, and it would have been an interesting like character study of the Wakandans to kind of show them in this light of like, hey, that was bad. Like maybe our system of how we create like our government and who is our ruler, it's like maybe we need to fix that. Maybe it's time for us to decide like a different way of living, which the first movie deals with a little bit. But they don't go anywhere with any of this. Like this idea that Shiri has of like, well, the Black Panther is a remnant of the past. We don't need one protector. And I thought what they might do, and you can argue some like ideological stuff with that, which is fine if that's the argument. Like I wouldn't necessarily disagree. But this idea of like, hey, maybe this idea of having this one dude that protects Wakanda because it's tradition, maybe that's not enough. Maybe we should
involve all the tribes.
Yeah, like maybe we all need to come together. Maybe it's dumb that this one person takes the flower, and when they're not the Black Panther anymore, we take it away from them. You know what I mean? It's like it got T'Challa's father killed.
Yeah,
because they didn't leave that. So I thought that might be the direction they were going to go with this. They don't. It doesn't go anywhere. And the middle of this movie spins its wheels, and we get half an hour of exposition about Namor. It's just like, it's like you could have cut it out. Too. We didn't need it.
Nope.
We didn't need it. There are way more interesting villains in the Marvel universe that you never gave this kind of attention to.
Yeah, I think Namor could have been better than what they did with him. You know what I mean?
How'd you feel about the wings on his ankles? I know it's canon. I know it's comic book accurate. I didn't like it.
Oh man, it looked so funny to me. But
did you like his movement? You know how like he's like hopping around and he's like super quick in the air.
Yeah. There's nothing I can really critique about it, but I can say this: I like how menacing he is at first. You get that first scene in the shipping container, right?
That scene, sure, I could. Yeah,
you get that, and that's great. And then you get that scene with the Queen and Shuri, like that opening when introduced, right? Great. Like, hey, if I have to come back, it's gonna be bad.
I disagree with that one you give him this kind of like very mysterious, like, oh, there's this, despite sort of like the color grade and them making that scene super dark, you get kind of this idea that they're dangerous. I can get behind that. Him coming back like alone in there, it's just like there's gotta, again, his motivation for like coming after Wakanda needed to be better, and him coming in and being like, help us, and they're like, no, who are you, like, why would we get involved in this? And then he's like, if you don't help me, I'm gonna murder all of you. And it's like, yeah, it's like, what? Like,
I agree, that's bad storytelling, just too simplistic. But it's more so of, I think, okay, like carrying that thread of the threat, but then it just completely kind of falls off for me, and they don't really go much of anywhere with him because of the exposition dump, right?
Yeah.
Um,
He's just sad boy. Like, it literally,
that's really just it.
His name translates to like sad boy.
Was it Son of the Devil or something?
No, it was like boy with a broken heart or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Kukulkan, I think is, yeah.
I think I wish there had been a bit more depth to him like there was with Thanos. And at least, Thanos thought he was pursuing this altruistic good, even though he was self-deceived, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
With Namor, it's just he's really just crazy.
Yeah, he was like pissed because he was literally pissed because of like colonizers.
Yeah.
When he wanted to go bury his mother.
Yep, and then that's what drove him to.
And that's dude. They don't even give they give you like the context, right? And that you remember that scene. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but it's fine at this point. There's that scene where they're going through his whole backstory, and so he's been living under the water for a very long time, and like there's so much that they don't really get into with how the power system works for Namor and his people. Like we talked about it already. He's like, how do they revive? Unless it's not convenient for the story to move forward, right? For like his motivation when T'Challa's ex-girlfriend kills one of them.
Yeah, right.
I don't understand how they. I don't understand how they revive.
Him invading Wakanda is because of that. Causes major incidents with another power that could, even though he thinks that they would destroy him, result in more of your people being killed.
And it's weird because, and this is more of like I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you have Dora Milaje lady like single-handedly take out about 5 of his troops. Mm-hmm. But then when we get to the end of the movie, they're just like struggling to do that. But nothing's changed about them. Like her and like some of her companions have these basically oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I have to mention this.
No, I'm fine with jumping ahead because at the end I don't think this movie is worth us doing a too long of a review on.
If we had more time, and again, if value for value starts working out, there is a reason to do something like that to dive into it. But I think I might have even said it out loud in the theater. And I was trying to be a little more respectful because there were a lot of kids there. I was like, I don't want to ruin this for the kids. Yeah. But at the end, you have Ironheart, and she's flying around. And you're like, all right, it's like basically Tony Stark. But then there are more Iron Man suits, basically. Like the night angel suits or whatever. And I literally just went, oh, so just everyone is Iron Man now? Like that's just what we're doing?
And then Don Cheadle's Iron Man.
Oh, yeah. Haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, not to mention, speaking of Wakanda's technology, how big of douchebags are the Wakandans for not healing Rhodey? They have the technology to fix Rhodey, and they never do it. They give Bucky They give Bucky a new arm, and no.
I thought they did.
No.
They didn't? Huh. You know better than I do.
He goes in Civil War, right, where that happens to him.
Right.
Black Panther's in that movie. Black Panther and Rhodey are on the same side, but they're like, no, you're just going to go through therapy. And I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and check, and someone can let me know this if I don't get to it before they do. But I'm pretty sure they don't ever use technology to do that. I think he has like braces on his legs to like help him walk. Like Tony uses some sort of like mechanic technology to help him walk. But it's been a while since I've seen because I guess he doesn't really show back up until Endgame, so I don't really remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just like, why is there just why? It's like lazy to be like, well, now everyone's Iron Man. Like all of them have Iron Man suits. And even with those suits, they cannot take out this isolated civilization that's underwater. It's very weird.
what it is that Oprah gave everyone Iron Man suits. David, you get one, I get one.
Everyone gets an Iron Man suit. So yeah, they go to war. Oh, dude. Okay, so we're kind of getting close to the end. Oh, dude. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about this movie in particular is that its pacing is very similar to the first movie. So you have the sort of the intro, right? Mm-hmm. You have the scene in the first one where they're doing sort of the spy stuff, and they're like breaking international law again, and all of that's going on. You have the moment where, like, quarter or a third of the way into it, T'Challa finally becomes black, or like he goes through his like trial by combat. Mm-hmm. And then the movie sort of like resets, and we get another trial by combat later on, and it's like, why are we doing this again? It's like he's already won the position, and now he has to do, like, can't he just refuse Killmonger? Like, anyway, this movie does something kind of similar with that, where we have like two major things at the end where you're like, well, shouldn't this be that thing? Where you get this scene where Namor attacks and then randomly decides not to again. He just, like, for no reason, like, he could have kept his promise, right? He could have taken out Riri Williams. He takes out the Queen. Could have left Shuri alive but accomplished his mission, because his whole motivation from the start was, I need to kill this scientist who is causing problems for my people. He could have done that, but for some reason, and then,
he's like, nope.
Oh God, and they have to spend this like 30 minutes, maybe longer than that, building up this relationship between him and Shuri, so that his motivation to leave later on is because he like kind of has a connection with her, and I'm like, oh my Lord. It's like
I thought that too when the Queen died, and it's like, why isn't he attacking the?
He's just like, nah. He's like, one more chance. I'll see you later.
Their weakest point. You have a week to live.
Yeah, just to give them enough time to. Yeah, just to give them enough time to recover and make a plan to take him on.
That's bad strategy. Your opponent's your enemy is at their weakest point. Now is the time to strike. Yep. Don't let them use their balls to resuscitate people.
Yeah. I think that Namor in particular seems to be, and his people, but they all seem to be incredibly overpowered, because not only can they swim very fast through water, not only do they have a song that essentially makes people unalive themselves, they also can just flood a nation whenever they feel like it.
Yeah, right.
And it was what's the context for this?
Yeah, well, he's supposed to be Aquaman, right?
Yeah, but like...
Aquaman, but Hermes, the Greek messenger god. That's where those wings came from, and I'm assuming who Namor is based off of. And then obviously the song is the Song of the Sirens, and so you get hints of the Odyssey and Greek mythology in this from there.
From him, I guess, but like, what a cluster! Like, why does he have all these things? Like, dude, and it's like,
you know what his weakness is?
Heaters.
Kryptonite. Yeah, heaters.
he got too warm.
Box heaters. Dude, man, I wish, dude, we man, hopefully eventually when we do this we'll be able to live in the same area, and we can start doing skits, man, because I get so
Brian
many
doing skits with you.
Oh no. Well, I'll get someone to do skits, dude.
Oh, we got to talk about.
I was thinking Killmonger she was going to see T'Challa, or maybe her mom, right? When this happened, and it's Killmonger.
Yeah, because she's angry and she wants the world to burn, and so the synthetic purple leaf shows us a character that's just here to be like, hey, remember how you all like this guy?
Yeah. Supposed to be this big reveal.
I knew about it. I knew about like all the spoilers before I saw the movie.
Oh, I didn't know anything, so I was just like, I didn't even watch the trailers except for that one, I think.
And then she becomes Black Panther, and she drops in and does her whole thing with
M'Baku. I hated that scene. I'm like, really, you're gonna act like that to him?
Yeah. This suit is over designed.
Yeah, I agree.
Not happy. It's just like there's too much going on. Like the thing that's cool about the Black Panther suit is it's very sleek. It's very stealth. Like you are not like Thor, right?
Right.
You're still a human being. Like there's supposed to be some like stealth elements to the way that the Black Panther works.
Yeah, because it's a panther.
Yeah. But they just forget all that. It's like at this point, everything is sort of just. I mean, that's the way it feels. Is that all of the costumes and everything's just going kind of the Iron Man route.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone's Iron Man now.
Yeah, Iron Man, Black Panther.
And that's the thing is that no one has these like. It's hard to really appreciate different characters because everyone just the movies and the shows, everything's kind of samey now. Yeah.
Again, you know what I mean? It's very algorithm based, right?
That's what it feels like.
We can go ahead and skip to the fight with Shuri and Namor in Act 3.
Oh, can we talk about the submarine though and this plan that they have leading up to it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like them being attacked in Wakanda makes more sense for a final fight than let's all go out into the middle of the ocean and fight on a boat.
Right.
And Namor already said, and I don't know if that's supposed to be an explanation as to why they're going out here, but like he says that he's got like tens of thousands of men, like more than he needs to defeat the Wakandans, which is ridiculous considering how much technology these people are supposed to have. And again, I don't know how to take a lot of this because I can't figure out if Namor's people can actually die or not. If they're immortal or not.
Yeah, right.
Because if they aren't, because the one lady shoots one of them with her like pulse gun, and she goes, it's so great. She goes, it's only a flesh wound, and then they die. The person dies. And you're like, well, wait, why did that kill them? Also, if these people can't fight out of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they just create something with their infinite amount of technology that pulls the masks off of them or like deactivates the masks that they use to breathe while they're out of the water?
Right?
You would have completely done away with it if that was the case. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. So we can talk about this fight. What do you want to get?
So I just want to say, like, first off, she doesn't, Namor ends up stabbing her, right? And she doesn't die from being stabbed like Killmonger did, even though Killmonger is wearing a suit. And I understand a lot of people are saying, well, she's wearing a suit and all that stuff. But she got stabbed
right through her.
Right through her. When Killmonger died, it wasn't like, it was in his chest.
Pierced his heart. Okay, that was what they were.
Yeah, right. Get that. But it goes right through her. It's like the whole Obi-Wan thing over again with other chick in there where she gets stabbed by Darth Vader through the torso. I guess, organs and your stomach and infection and bleeding like that doesn't matter. But it's not even just the fact of her surviving that. Okay, I can understand she probably survives that, right? It's that you would think that would be a mortal, like a severe enough wound to, it's like, we got to get this addressed immediately. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No. Just doesn't matter.
That's true. It's like it's like you're just supposed to, and again, this is like an issue with like the way that Wakanda is set up and their tech and all of that. It's like, I guess you're supposed to assume that between the fight with Namor and when the movie is basically over, she used something to like heal herself or whatever. It's just, they have this like magic technology that can basically do everything except for heal a random illness for T'Challa. And that's the thing is, just like with a lot of the other stuff that we cover, things work until the plot needs them not to.
Yes.
Stuff works a certain way. I mean, dude, you gotta think like Riri Williams, right? She has her inferior version of her Ironheart suit, which is an awful design. Just no thought was put in to the design of Ironheart's suit. It looks pretty rough.
Right.
But she's in like an exoskeleton version of it. She flies all the way up into the atmosphere, loses power, crashes into Earth, and doesn't die. how is she alive? Like, that impact would have killed her.
Yeah.
It doesn't, dude. At this point, logic doesn't matter with the MCU. Most of the people at this point who are watching it, it's like it is that mentality of just like turn your brain off.
Yeah.
Turn your brain off, consume content. And I love that Namor is literally right by the water, and he never so. He like basically, so she like sucks. She uses the heaters, right? And again, the convenience of him going into that ship, and I guess they were trying to say that they like tricked him to go inside, like he was going to go into like take the ship out or whatever. Not that he's needed to do that for the rest of the movie. He did perfectly well with his crazy vibranium spear, his crazy overpowered vibranium spear, just like cutting the wings off of ships, and like I think he tosses it through one of the, he's stabbing the tops of the ships in their like consoles to like take them out. But for some reason, in this instance, out of convenience, because the plot has to move forward, he goes inside.
Yeah.
And again, dude,
I thought it was like they snatched him.
But he had a spear. He had a spear inside, right?
Yeah,
he had a spear inside the ship. The spear that he was cutting straight through ships with, and he gets inside, and all of a sudden he can't do it.
Not only that, but he gets one of his wings cut off right by.
She like tears it off or whatever.
Shuri in that fight.
Does that grow
consequence
back?
of that as where?
Yeah, does that grow back?
Well, so
do you think that grows back?
I don't know. But I'll say this. This movie was enlightening. It showed that the left isn't just coming after straight white men. They're coming after straight men irrespective of color.
Wait, how? Or was that a joke? I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't
just
tell.
A joke. I mean, there's some kind of, a lot of the men, with the exception of M'Baku, to me, come off a bit effeminate. The women, they're supposed to curtail to the women in this. The women are the leaders. A lot of the masculine qualities are put more so on heavy-handedly on the female characters,
right?
Whereas more of the traditional female characteristics are put on the males in this. And so there is a sense of that, to where you have this postmodernism infecting it. Now, what I just said was a joke, but I mean, they don't recast Black Panther with a black male, right? And they instead use they go with Letitia Wright and Shuri instead. I mean, the entire movie is a intersectional feminism, dream of women being able to slay. I think I'd texted you "Slay Queen" because that's all that it's about, right? From the opening of the movie to the beginning, in a way that's just heavy-handed and inorganic to the storyline. It's not saying that you can't have women, as we've talked about before, have some of the characteristics that are generally associated with men, like you have with Vi and Arcane. It's just doesn't seem organic to the storyline, and it's like Margot Robbie with Pirates of the Caribbean. It was going to be a girl power movie, right?
Yeah,
that's what this seems like.
Yeah. It's interesting the way they
at the expense of men, to where men are less, and in this case, straight black men.
I can understand that. I think I just don't care at this point. It's like,
I'm just pointing it out,
right? I know
that's all I'm doing.
I know that they're trying to, and it just like, it wasn't a strong attempt at it. I mean, I guess there's going to be plenty of people that are going to look at it and see it that way. But it's funny you mentioned that, because all I thought after, like, oh yeah, it's just like the women like taking lead or whatever, and I'm just like, women can commit war crimes too or whatever. It's like, the Dora Milaje basically have amnesty everywhere in the world. It's like, it doesn't matter what they do. They're never going to get in trouble for any of the things that happen to them. I mean, I can't even. Yeah, it would take more effort than I care to commit to this specific film to really get into a lot of what you're talking about with that. I mean, I get it. I see it, and you're right. It's probably something that
it's pretty blatant, dude.
Well, it's something that's like, it is there, but the stuff like there's more of that like the stuff with the colonizer comments and like what you're talking about before. It's like, oh, the kneeling and like they're really that stuff. It seems a little more blatant to me, and what this was, and I guess this is what they've been doing, like not just Disney, but a lot of places have been doing. I mean, like we talked about it a while back with He-Man, where it's like this kind of like okey doke thing where they purposely weren't really telling you who the main character was going to be, what the conflict was going to be, partially because the movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and there's not like a the motivations and the through lines for like why Namor's there and like why he's specifically in combat with Wakanda versus like being pissed at the rest of the world for like digging. You know, he's basically just pissed at the Wakandans because they wouldn't help him, and he like wants to genocide Wakanda specifically for that reason.
Yeah,
and it's like it's all just very weird. And so like when it comes down for me. When it comes down to the people, it's tertiary, if you will. A lot of the stuff for me that they do where they're trying to put in like the girl boss stuff or the intersectional feminism or the wokeism or whatever they do, because the story sucks so much that I'm like, all right, like, and we've talked about this before. It's like it's a complaint.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I'm just like, I don't know. Like there's only so much I can care, and when you can't even give me something that's kind of interesting so that when that stuff is blatantly in there I can at least groan at the cringe.
Yeah.
And that's been that was the problem with
at least
like,
give
Love
me something
Thunder.
that's worth it.
Yeah, and that's because some of it is in Multiverse of Madness. I think it's probably, I can't even remember. I mean, dude, they've got to shorten the runtimes on these movies. Yeah, like please cut down your movie. Like
if they're going to be
tighter.
Like this.
Anyway, and so sometimes it's really hard for me at this point. It's just it is par for the course with Phase 4. The writing, them trying to push specific types of content, them really doing this thing where it's like we're going to emphasize like the women in these movies a lot more than the men, and it's like if you're gonna do that, dude, make your content good.
Yeah, you got to make it really good.
Yeah, you need to continue to make it good, because the reason that people like Tony Stark is not because he's male. It's because they have followed
he's a good character.
Yeah, especially Iron Man 1. I mean, you can argue
Iron Man 2 and 3 aren't.
Yeah, but people like him as a character.
But even in those movies, he's still endearing in them. Like,
sure,
you could still have a bad plot. Like, right, like, you know, for example, I could talk about, hey, the original Black Panther, it's just an okay movie. It's just average, right? But what's really good in that is the main lead.
T'Challa.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, right? Or you have something like The Witcher, perfect example. Season 2 absolutely sucks, but Henry Cavill is gold in it. Season 1, it's good, okay to good, right? But Henry Cavill, the gold of the show, right? And so you can have those that happen, and really, you know, that really doesn't happen here with the exception of M'Baku.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised. So other than that one moment where Namor like punches him in the chest, I actually don't think that was it, because I thought of that for a second. I was like, oh man, are they really kind of like embarrassing him here or whatever? But for the most part, I think he gets out of this movie pretty much intact. Now, again, I don't remember a whole lot about him in the first Black Panther, so I don't want to say for certain that his character's been like fine, you know? But the moments that he is in the movie, the movie got like minusculely better when he was there versus when he's not in the movie, and to the point where I was like, maybe they should have put him in the movie more.
Yeah, no, they should have.
Even him coming alongside Shuri to be sort of like counsel for her, I liked that.
That was good.
That's
what I mean. Like, he was wise. He was kind of like her elder, someone, that relationship she could look to.
Also, did they set him up to become King of Wakanda? Was that what they were doing in that scene at the end where they're back to their trial by combat arena, and then he comes out and he's like, oh, she's not here right now. Like, I couldn't figure out if the idea
I thought that was just like he was going to be her representative.
Maybe so.
It's kind of her way of bucking, because she's the progressive one in there.
Right.
Of she hates tradition.
Right.
It's not like so original these days. We don't have 100 movies like that.
Well, it's not. That's the only reason that's
it's
fine.
Fine. It just doesn't.
No, it works if they didn't set it up well enough. But like I was talking about before, it works within the context of the movie because the elders and the people that are the ones that hold these traditional concepts within their culture are the ones that almost wiped out their culture and started a civil war.
Yeah.
Because they
that's a good point. I forgot about that.
Yeah, they couldn't let go of all that stuff, so Killmonger was able to take power. Like you gotta, and that's where that kind of comes from, because it's like, again, Killmonger's plan was to murder innocent people, including children, and this.
Keep forgetting about that first movie,
right? This group of people that M'Baku does not like, and that Shuri does not like. And I wish there had been a scene where he basically was like, "You're done, Council." Like, it would have been great but again, there was too much going on in this. They were trying too hard to set up all of these different characters, and they didn't endear me to anyone. This is what I was trying to. I had talked to some people outside of this before it started, where they were like, "Oh, well, they don't want to recast Black Panther because they're trying to be respectful to Chadwick Boseman." I'm like, yeah, but money is the bottom line. Now, don't get me wrong. It looks like this is going to make its money back. I don't think that's good enough for Disney. This has to be another $1 billion movie the way that the first one was. I'm not sure that's going to happen. We don't know. We'll have to wait until we get box office for the next week or two. But depending on the drop-off after this opening weekend, and whether or not, and because it doesn't seem like the fervor is around this the way that it was for the first one. I don't know if you've seen anything differently,
no.
But I've seen people from, let's just say, all walks of life who seem not to like this movie very much. You know what I mean? Even IGN gave it a 7, and that's pretty low for IGN.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, right? It doesn't seem to hit any marks that are noteworthy, that can really prepare it. I don't think this is going to propel it to really hit $1 billion, because that's what they're hoping for with this, right? I don't think it's going to hit that. I don't think it's going to match what the first one did at all in any kind of semblance. Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll find out in about a week. Yeah. Like by this time next week, we'll know for certain. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? I mean, dude, there's a lot that we missed.
Not really.
There's a lot.
I think we
missed.
talked about it too long. That's pretty much all I have to say. I just could really care less, I just don't care about Marvel anymore, and this baffles me that as a company in business, you don't want to lead with your strong sellers.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I wonder if they keep seeing, because that's the thing people have to remember. So the movie so far, like over the weekend, it made around, I think, $330 million, and that's worldwide. So that's U.S. box office and international. So it's $250 million quote unquote budget, which by now a lot of people should know you have to double that. So the movie's got to make about half a billion dollars to break even. So it needs to be even more successful than that to really be a win. I don't know if the like fever pitch is there, man, to get it across that.
Yeah, I don't think it is at all.
And again, this is par for the course for Phase 4. So before we close out, because I think this will be good, so that you can kind of clip this, because and I want to do this at the beginning, but I forgot. I'm going to give you I won't say definitive, but off the top of my head, after seeing this, my rankings for the Phase 4 movies. Now,
okay,
to be clear, and I want to be very clear, this is like bottom of the barrel territory for Marvel. So me putting these in a specific ranking is not a promotion of these movies being good. So that's clear. This is based on Phase 4 specifically, because I think all of these barring Far From Home, would all be at the very bottom of a list if we were to rank all however many movies are there at this point. So Far From Home is definitely one.
Okay.
Black Widow might be after that. It's either that or Shang-Chi, and I don't remember either of them well enough. But as far as like, because when we were talking about this, I think before we started recording, those two movies, Black Widow and Shang-Chi, have plenty of plot problems, plenty of character development problems, plenty of the same old dumb nonsense that goes on in Marvel, weird, plot reasons for like villains doing things and what, but they don't break the MCU the way some of these other movies do.
Right.
So without saying, like, for instance, that one of those is 2 and one of them is 3, I think off the top of my head, I probably say, actually, this is what I'm going to say. Because I hate that Black Widow movie. And I hate that Black Widow movie because they destroyed one of the better characters from the films. Like, that had a good arc through the first 3 phases. So it's probably No Way Home, Shang-Chi, then Black Widow. Actually, no, I gotta say then Black Widow because Wakanda Forever is so irritating. But Wakanda Forever probably comes after that because then you get, oh shoot, where are we now? Hang on, I've got Thor: The Dark World left and Multiverse of not Dark World, Love and Thunder. Are those the only other 2? Am I forgetting one?
I don't think you are. Let me see.
You can look them up, but
I'll consult the Book of Truth.
Yeah, if we're at, so we've got No Way Home, we've got Shang-Chi. I might have to put Wakanda Forever. I really don't like that Black Widow movie.
Okay, so we have, you said Eternals, Spider-Man.
Oh, Eternals. No, Eternals is bottom of the barrel too because it not only does it break massive stuff within the MCU, it recontextualized Thanos as the good guy. Like what he was doing in Infinity War and Endgame was like a good thing because there's the massive like celestial living inside Earth, and if it because of the world population and it like sucking energy from them, it's gonna burst out and destroy the world. So what Thanos was trying to do essentially would have stopped that from happening for a really long time. And so it's like what were y'all thinking with this plot? So yeah, and Wakanda Forever's a mess. It's frustrating. It's got plenty of weird, like the science mumbo jumbo from Wakanda is annoying and causes a lot of problems. But again, as far as I'm concerned, when we're talking about this bottom of the barrel, it doesn't go far enough destroying stuff that I can confidently say that it's worse than Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, or Eternals.
Yeah.
When we get to those last 3, so Black Widow ends up somewhere in the middle because as much as I dislike that, so for the bottom 2, the very bottom slot is Multiverse of Madness. It's an awful movie. It destroys Wanda as a character. It uses some beloved characters that they just bring in for like joke reasons. It destroys like power levels of characters. It makes a lot of the stuff in the universe, it doesn't make sense with like the Darkhold being this book, and then there's one version of it that's like the opposite of the Darkhold that gets destroyed, and like but there's only one of those, and it was the thing that they could have used that would have been better to take out Thanos. And like I think in that instance, like Tony wouldn't have had to die. It does a lot of damage to stuff that came before it, which is also a problem in the long run. Where I don't think Wakanda Forever goes quite as far with that, and I know you haven't seen Love and Thunder,
right? And
the only reason I might consider putting Love and Thunder third to the bottom above above Eternals, and so Eternals being second, and then Multiverse of Madness being at the very end, is just time length for the movies. Because I think Love and Thunder's like an hour shorter than Eternals is. But Love and Thunder introduces gods essentially into the MCU. And I can't, I'd have to go back and watch these. I can't make up my mind whether the Eternals actually being introduced is more of a problem than like Zeus and an entire pantheon of gods based on like the different groups of people within the MCU. I don't know which one is more of a problem, and I don't know if it's because all of it's still kind of new, so we haven't really seen what they've decided to do with that, or if one is really worse than the other. Because Thor: Love and Thunder as a movie, it's really bad, dude. Like they make that movie makes a joke out of cancer. Like just very flippantly, like, you know, I can understand like gallows humor when it comes to that stuff, but I don't even know if I would consider it that. And like Multiverse of Madness is borderline like not a script, and Thor: Love and Thunder is too, and at least Eternals has a through line of a script. Like I can still sort of give you a rundown of Eternals and kind of the conflict and what breaks them apart and why they have to kind of come together. And again, this is not an endorsement of any of these movies. But I'm trying to kind of like steelman a little bit, you know, which one might pull out ahead, but it's close. But yeah, those three are somewhere down at the bottom.
Okay.
And the more I think about it, the harder it is to put them in a specific order. But yeah, I mean, obviously No Way Home is first. Shang-Chi, it's just a poor movie, but it doesn't...
I understand your list.
Yeah, it doesn't change a whole lot going forward. Like, it's introducing a new character. He goes on an adventure, and there might be some stuff with like there's some logic problems within its own kind of universe about this like magical kingdom that they're trying this like magical kingdom they're trying to find at the end, and like this forest that like eats you alive, and like somehow their car manages to get through it because they happen to figure out how to go the right way. It's nonsense, but at the same time, I don't think it's as breaking as Eternals, Love and Thunder, and especially Multiverse of Madness. Like multiverse, I was telling you this before we started too, and I'm trying to put this definitive list together of how I would rate things from like 1 to 10. Multiverse of Madness is a 1.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of like and the reason I'm doing it that way is because being able to explain like when you have a movie that is just broken across the board, that's how you get into that one category. Especially if you've not only broken your own movie, but you're breaking everything that came before it. And Thor does that. I mean, not only does Thor do that with the character, because again, he's finding himself. He's got to find himself again. We can't move on from Thor, you know, all of these times that he was like learning things. So it breaks his character particularly from past movies. You know, he finally figures out what he wants. He finally figures out how to be the person he's supposed to be to lead his people. He decides to abandon that to just like go wander off in outer space. And then he's like, oh, this isn't fulfilling. I don't know who I am anymore. That stuff sucks. Anyway, I know we're going over. But there's something to talk about there. Maybe once you finally catch up on all that stuff, I'm gonna like force you to do that. Now that you've seen all but those the potentially the two worst.
I still have to watch Love and Dumber and Multiverse of Madness. So
Love and Thunder is.
I'm not planning on it. I'll pass. You got the reviews out there for us. You've already suffered. I don't have to suffer any more than I need to.
Listen, if y'all start doing more value for value, Joseph will suffer through them for you.
Yes, I will.
Because I know the troll room was asking about it earlier. It was something along the lines of like, well, you know, what what would get better, and it's like, well, first of all, Joseph would actually watch some of this stuff. I just like
Yes,
torturing
I would.
myself. I'm fat. There's so many like interesting things about the way that a script goes wrong. That's the kind of stuff that I'm always really curious about, and it's probably the only reason I watch bad stuff. And it sucks sometimes because there's not as much good content as there is bad. And so I have to figure out a way to balance that, but then sometimes that means I'm just going back and watching stuff I've seen a million times, you know? Whereas like Disney in particular, the way they are just churning stuff out, it's exhausting.
Right.
It's like, oh man, dude, Ant-Man comes out in February. Here we are into Phase 5 with Quantumania, the green screen, you know. Yeah.
Probably will have to.
It's like Ant-Man green screen mania.
Yeah, right.
Now we have it's like we have everyone's Iron Man. Now everyone's Ant-Man.